Biblical Basis Project. Genesis. Scheffler indicates that it is found in Genesis that poverty was not in God's perfect plan for the world, but perhaps it is instead a product of the fall of humanity. Through Joseph's story, we see an economic theory of economic upswings and downswings. It is seen that poverty could be prevented if people would keep in mind that it is wise to save for times of need. The source for the statements in this slide are credited to Scheffler, 2013. Exodus. The covenant code found in Exodus chapters 20 through 23 contains some practical directions that set out to benefit the poor. They are the sufferings of those who must sell themselves as slaves because they are too poor to care for themselves has a time limit, as they are to be set free in the 7th year. No wrongdoing or ill treatment to the foreigners, widows, or orphans. Interest-free loans that will eventually be canceled were established for the poor. Fair justice for the poor was called for. Food benefits for the poor when the land was left alone in the Sabbath year. The source for the statements in this slide are credited to Scheffler, 2013. Leviticus. Quequada states, to remedy the situation of poverty, God provided for the Israelites detailed laws and regulations recorded in the Torah and designed to protect the poor and eradicate poverty in the land. For example, the Torah insists that every Israelite should provide by interest-free loans for a fellow Israelite who became poor and needy. The laws that are covered in Leviticus were set up to help those who had become poor or were going to become poor to get back on their feet and reestablish themselves. Those who sold themselves into slavery were to be treated as a hired hand until he could be released. Leviticus chapter 23, verses 35 through 43. There was a chance for redemption. If a fellow Israelite was down and out and had to sell himself to a stranger as a slave, then a family member could redeem him, or if he became prosperous, he could redeem himself. Leviticus chapter 25, verses 47 through 79. Quequada states that those who have some means have the duty to help those who are poor. This can be found in Leviticus chapter 5, verses 7 through 13, also in Leviticus chapter 14, verses 21 through 32. Deuteronomy. It is indicated that there is a humanitarian attitude toward the poor and the needy throughout Deuteronomy. It's interpreted that Deuteronomy 15:4 to mean that if the laws of the Old Testament were obeyed by Israel, then the poor would not have existed due to the community's care of those who were in need. In other words, caring for the poor was a biblical mandate. We see the concern to maintain the dignity of the poor throughout Deuteronomy through interest-free loans, daily wages, and the return of garments that were used for loan collateral by nightfall. The source for the statements in this slide are credited to Wafanawaka, 2014. This concludes the presentation for the Biblical Basis Project.